They called him the Leper King, a boy destined to die young, yet a ruler who defied death and carved his name into history. This is the story of Baldwin IV of Jerusalem. Baldwin was born in 1161 into the royal family of Jerusalem. His grandfather was Amori I, who seized Jerusalem for the Crusader kingdom in 1118. His father was Amalric I, a brutal warrior who waged ceaseless war against Muslims and fellow Christians alike. So Baldwin grew up hearing the clash of arms, seeing blood in the streets, smelling death under the noonday sun. From his cradle, he heard tales of valor, of holy war, of warriors charging into the heat of battle. It all seemed natural, and yet there was something different about him. When Baldwin was 4, his father sent him to a tutor, a seasoned knight named Garnier. Garnier had seen enough battle to last several lifetimes, and what did he get for reward? A handful of children to educate, to teach them to read, to write, to prepare them for the responsibilities of the Crusader court. For now, the boys were too young for war. Garnier saw potential in Baldwin, but also felt a chill of foreboding. That same year, when playing with other children, Baldwin was bitten hard on the hand by another boy. He did not cry. He did not flinch. Garnier came running. "What happened?" he asked. Baldwin said nothing, and indeed, nothing appeared on the surface. But the next day, the bite had turned into a red sore. Days passed. The sore spread, then burst. It was clear Baldwin had leprosy. Garnier knew the signs well. Leprosy was a curse. Those who contracted it were unclean, shunned, hidden away. Most died early, wasting away until only skin and bones remained. Garnier watched in horror as Baldwin's health declined, but something puzzled him. The boy did not seem afraid, nor did he show any sign of weakness. Rather, Baldwin showed curiosity. He wanted to know how the disease worked, why it chose him, and how he could fight back. Garnier knew the answer. There was no cure. Baldwin listened quietly, then surprised his tutor by asking, "Then I shall have no pain?" "I'm sorry, Your Highness," Garnier replied. "The disease eats away at you. You will suffer much, and is that bad?" "You must ask yourself that question, Sir Knight." Garnier thought the boy had gone mad. Hadn't leprosy taken his mind along with his looks? Still, the tutor tried to help. He bathed Baldwin, massaged him, fed him nutritious food, made sure he got plenty of rest. Yet, despite his efforts, the king's sores grew larger. They spread from his hands to his feet, from his feet to his face. Pus oozed from the cracks, mixed with dirt and grime, making his body a patchwork of open sores, red, weeping wounds, then scarred flesh. Garnier had hoped to delay the inevitable, but he failed. One by one, Baldwin's limbs withered. His fingers warped and cracked, his toes fused into hard lumps. Slowly, his ears disappeared, his nose melted into his face. Within 5 years, he looked more monster than man. When he was 11, he contracted malaria, which kept him feverish and delirious for months. All the while, he lost weight, becoming a living skeleton. And yet, through it all, Baldwin studied. He learned Latin, Greek, and Arabic. He devoured books on medicine, history, military tactics, and theology. He prayed often, and his prayers were answered. His mind was as sharp as ever. And when his father, King Amalric I, died in 1174, the throne went to Baldwin, though he was only 13 years old. The kingdom was stunned. They had known Baldwin was ill, but not so grave. Who would rule in place of their king? Who would lead them in war? And suddenly, they had an answer, a thin, shriveled boy on a golden throne, his skin covered in sores, his hands curled like talons, his eyes hollow. For a moment, no one spoke. Then a knight approached the throne, bowed, and said, "Long live the king," and then another, and another, until the hall echoed with support for their new king. Baldwin was crowned Baldwin IV, but none understood what the future held. At the time, Jerusalem was just a small state nestled between Egypt, Lebanon, and the Mediterranean Sea. It wasn't vast, but it was volatile. Its people, mostly peasants, were divided by religion. The kingdom was surrounded by Muslim powers, including the Zengids and the Ayyubids, who were constantly at war with Christian lords. And on top of it all sat a 13-year-old leper. To the outside world, Baldwin's fate was sealed. He was a child who should have been protected, not put in charge. But Baldwin was no ordinary child. He was smart, intelligent, and fiercely ambitious. In 1177, his counselors told him to flee. An army led by the great Muslim general Saladin, already a rising power in the Middle East, was marching on Jerusalem with the intention of seizing the city. And yet, Baldwin refused to run. He would rather die in Jerusalem than live in exile. When his counselors pointed out he would die anyway from leprosy, Baldwin merely smiled. Why not die in battle, where there is glory, rather than hiding in a corner like a dog, where there is shame? To everyone's surprise, Baldwin stayed and fought. He led the Crusader knights into battle at Montgisard, where Saladin's army vastly outnumbered them. Once again, Baldwin refused to retreat. Strapped to his horse because his hands were useless, he watched as his knights charged forward, sword against sword, shield against shield, man against man. He yelled orders, directing troops, trying to rally the exhausted defenders. Saladin was furious. Such bravery from a child king infuriated him. He wanted to take Baldwin prisoner, force him to watch as Jerusalem fell, break his spirit, and win over the kingdom. But Baldwin would not give Saladin that satisfaction. By the end of the day, the Crusaders had won. Saladin's army was scattered, his own prestige ruined. Saladin himself barely escaped with his life. That victory made Baldwin a legend. Overnight, he was no longer seen as a weak, sick king, but a warrior king chosen by God, a true champion of the crusade. Even Saladin respected him deeply, yet leprosy was relentless. As Baldwin grew older, his body betrayed him. His hands curled, his face scarred, his sight dimmed, and eventually, his vision faded completely. His whole body ached. Sometimes it felt as if his bones would shatter or his skin would burst. He relied on his knights to carry him around, wrapped in blankets, strapped to litters, lifted onto thrones. But throughout it all, Baldwin held on. He continued to command, to scheme, to forge alliances with neighboring kingdoms, to hold together a fragile kingdom surrounded by enemies, to keep the flame of the Crusades burning bright. After his great victory at Montgisard, Saladin tried twice more to conquer Jerusalem, and both times failed. But that didn't stop Baldwin from preparing for the next assault. He knew he was dying. So instead of worrying about himself, he worried about his people. He arranged marriages for his siblings, securing alliances and heirs. He built schools and hospitals, planted vineyards, encouraged trade. He made Jerusalem a better place, hoping to leave it in good shape for the day when it would be ruled once more by a strong king. Meanwhile, he continued to deteriorate. The leprosy ate away at him, taking everything: his beauty, his health, his eyesight, his mobility. But it could not take his spirit, his will, his determination. Baldwin knew that he could not beat leprosy, but he could beat despair. So he endured endless pain, carried on a litter by his knights, still appearing in public as a king, crowned and dignified, so his people would never lose hope. By the age of 23, his disease had advanced too far. He was blind. He could barely move. His body was little more than a mass of rotting flesh, a living corpse. And that was when Baldwin IV died. He was buried in the Church of the Holy Sepulchre in Jerusalem, the city he had defended with every breath. And within 2 years of his death, Saladin returned. With Baldwin gone, Jerusalem fell. Yet Baldwin's story lived on. The boy who should have been forgotten became one of the most respected and tragic kings of the Middle Ages. To this day, he is remembered not for his sickness, but for his courage facing death every day and ruling not with strength of body, but with strength of spirit. Thank you for watching.